Everybody, I need your full attention right now, because what I am about to walk you through is the most complete and most dangerous weather picture we have had all summer long, and July has not even officially started yet. This is not one threat. This is not two threats. What we are looking at heading into this month is a stacked, layered, multi-hazard weather pattern that is going to affect nearly every single person watching this video, from the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast, from the Canadian border all the way down to the Gulf. Extreme heat that could break records that have stood for decades. A ring of firestorm setup that is already sending derechos tearing across the plains. Catastrophic wildfire conditions from Utah to the Pacific Northwest. Flash flooding threats that forecasters have already flagged as a priority concern all month long. And a developing Super El Niño that is now actively breaking into the atmosphere and reshaping everything we thought we knew about this summer's weather pattern. Nobody is ready for this July, everybody. And I'm going to make sure that after this video, you are. Happy Tuesday. Mark here. No hype, no drama, just what you need to know. Let's get right into it. Let's start with what is happening right now, today, because this is already dangerous and it is already affecting over 250 million people. The heat dome. Everybody, we have been watching this thing build all week, and it has now fully locked in across the eastern two-thirds of this country. More than 74 million people in the United States are currently under heat alerts according to the National Weather Service, with a strong ridge of high pressure settling over the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys and expected to strengthen over the coming days, bringing a risk for high temperatures climbing into the lower 100s Fahrenheit. And it is not just the air temperature, everybody. It is what that temperature feels like when you factor in the humidity that has been pumping northward out of the Gulf of Mexico all week. Heat index values, what it will actually feel like when humidity is factored in, will reach as high as 115 degrees Fahrenheit later this week from the Ohio Valley out toward the East Coast. 115 degrees, that is not a number you shrug off. That is a number that kills people. More than 100 record highs are expected to be set through Saturday night, along with about 250 record warm overnight lows, with extreme heat warnings in effect for major cities including Nashville, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Des Moines, Chicago, and Detroit. An extreme heat watch is in effect for much of the Northeast, with temperatures over 100 degrees expected. 250 record warm overnight lows, everybody. That is the number that scares meteorologists more than the daytime highs. Because when your overnight temperature stays in the 70s or the 80s, your body never gets to recover. You go to bed overheated, you wake up overheated, day after day after day. And that is when the heat stops being uncomfortable and starts being fatal. Heat is the deadliest type of weather in the United States, with a higher annual average death toll than tornadoes, hurricanes, and lightning combined according to Weather Service statistics. More than all of those combined, everybody, every year. And right now we are in the middle of the worst heat event of 2026. So far, your cities at highest risk for dangerous heat right now: Nashville, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Des Moines, Chicago, Detroit in the Midwest, New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. in the Northeast, and the entire corridor from the Deep South through the Tennessee Valley. If you are in these cities, please take this seriously. Drink water, stay out of the heat, and check on your elderly neighbors and family members who may not have air conditioning. Now let me show you something that most people don't understand about this heat dome. And this is the part that is truly setting up the rest of July as one of the most dangerous months we have seen. The setup involves strengthening high pressure across the southeast, which pulls very hot and humid air northward from the Gulf of Mexico. The intense heat acts like a large dome over part of the country, while storms tend to travel around the edges where cooler air, stronger winds, and moisture collide, making the weather feel relentless for people living near the boundary, especially when storms return night after night. This is what meteorologists are calling a ring of fire pattern. And I want to explain this to everybody clearly because this term is going to come up a lot over the next several weeks. The ring of fire is a curved line or roughly oval-shaped ring of thunderstorms that can encircle a high-pressure system, often becoming severe due to the summertime heat and humidity. And in June or July, these thunderstorms can become derechos. A derecho, everybody, for those who don't know, is not just a line of thunderstorms. It is a long-lived, organized, catastrophic line of thunderstorms that can produce widespread, destructive, straight-line wind damage across hundreds and hundreds of miles in a single event. And we already got a preview of what this pattern is capable of just this past weekend. A long-tracking, intense supercell thunderstorm affected a small part of the plains from Sunday night into Monday morning and produced wind gusts to 131 miles per hour, which, if verified, would be the second highest thunderstorm wind gust ever recorded in the United States. Second highest ever recorded, from a single supercell riding the edge of this heat dome. And that was just the opening act, everybody. At least multiple zones of severe weather are likely this week, one extending from northern Michigan to northern Kansas with hail, high winds, and a few tornadoes possible, another focusing over the southern high plains, and a third in the northeast extending from southwestern Quebec and southeastern Ontario to the New England coast. 3 separate severe weather zones simultaneously, all being fueled by the same heat dome. And here is what is so important to understand about this ring of fire setup. The same broad setup may keep producing new rounds of weather as small disturbances move around the heat ridge, making the week feel less like one event and more like a cycle of repeated threats, with Wednesday and Thursday standing out as days to watch for another potential organized line of thunderstorms across the Midwest. This is not a one-day event. This is a machine, everybody. A weather machine that is going to keep reloading, keep firing day after day, for as long as this dome stays locked in place. Your states at risk for the ring of fire, severe weather over the coming days: North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Northern Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and pushing into the Northeast, including New York, Pennsylvania, and New England. If you are anywhere along that northern fringe of this heat dome, you need to have your severe weather plan ready every single day this week. Now let me talk about something that ties all of this together, and that is the flood threat. Because this July, everybody, flash flooding is going to be one of the defining hazards of the entire month. Flash flood events are expected in parts of the Plains, Mississippi Valley, and Ohio Valley on a higher frequency this summer, with a flooding zone to watch most closely running from Texas to the Ohio Valley, including the area of the Texas Hill Country. And I want you to hear that, the Texas Hill Country, because everybody remembers what happened there on July 4th, 2025. Deadly flash floods swept through Kerr County, resulting in more than 100 deaths and between $18 and $22 billion in economic damage. That was 1 year ago. Those communities are still recovering. And now, heading into July 4th of 2026, we have a similarly active, severe weather pattern in place across that same region. This is what a compounding threat looks like, everybody. It is not just the storms themselves. It is the storms on top of already stressed drainage systems. It is the storms on top of drought-cracked ground that cannot absorb water fast enough. It is the storms on top of communities that are still healing from what happened last year. The monsoon may also bring some relief to the southwest, but it could also trigger flash flooding, mudslides, and lightning-sparked fires in that same region. So we are not just talking about one type of water threat. We are talking about river flooding, flash flooding, and monsoon-driven flooding all at the same time. And here's another piece of this flood picture that is not getting enough attention: the heat dome breaking down. Right now, the dome is locked in, but it cannot stay locked in forever. The heat dome could begin to shift west toward the plains over the 4th of July weekend, allowing cooler air and more frequent thunderstorms to spread into the east. And when a heat dome breaks down after baking the atmosphere for a week or more, the release of that energy is explosive. The atmosphere has been building and building all that instability underneath the dome. When the lid comes off, when that dome finally weakens, all of that pent-up energy erupts at once. That is when you get your most violent, most organized severe weather. And that breakdown is coming, everybody. Now let's talk about wildfires, because this is the other side of the July forecast that nobody wants to talk about, but everybody needs to hear. Large parts of the West and Great Plains are in extreme or exceptional drought, including areas of Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Utah, where wildfires in June forced entire communities to evacuate, and the National Wildfire Forecast shows above normal fire risk continuing into July in much of the U.S. West and Texas. In the West, a snow drought has put a pinch on water resources and left forests without the usual moisture they would get from a lingering snowpack, while the southeastern U.S. had far below normal precipitation in early 2026, which led to extremely dry conditions that fueled wildfires in the spring, with half the region still in severe to extreme drought as of mid-June. And now those drought-stressed landscapes are going to get hit with the full force of a July heat dome. That combination, extreme heat on top of exceptional drought on top of dry, cured vegetation, that is exactly the recipe for explosive, fast-moving wildfires that can outrun firefighters and overwhelm communities with almost no warning. AccuWeather forecasts 65,000 to 80,000 wildfires across the United States this year, with 5 to 8 million acres expected to burn, with larger and more destructive wildfires likely this year as the interior, Northwest, and the Rockies regions face the highest risk. And their own experts have drawn the comparison directly to 2020, one of the most catastrophic wildfire seasons in American history, warning that conditions later this year could support any fires that ignite to spread faster, grow larger, and become more difficult to contain. Nearly 61% of the United States is currently in drought, everybody. 61%. That is not a regional story. That is a national emergency playing out in slow motion. And right now, on top of that drought, we have a July heat dome pumping temperatures to 100, 105, 110 degrees across those same drought zones. Your highest wildfire risk areas heading into July: the interior Northwest, the Rockies, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, Texas, and Northern California. If you are in any of these areas, pay attention to red flag warnings. Know your evacuation routes. And please, this July 4th, if your area has banned consumer fireworks, listen to that ban. This is not the year to test it. Now I want to zoom out and show you the big picture of July, because what the long-range models are telling us about this entire month goes beyond just this week's heat dome and ring of fire. Summer 2026 is expected to bring a volatile mix of heat, severe thunderstorms, and flooding to the United States, with El Niño developing and flexing its influence on the weather pattern, with severe weather expected to be most active in June and July, from the plains to the Midwest and Ohio Valley. But here is what is new, everybody. New. Here is what has changed in just the last few days. The Super El Niño we have been tracking, that massive Kelvin wave of warm water that has been rising from the depths of the Pacific, is now actively breaking into the atmosphere. Super El Niño is now breaking into the atmosphere with summer to fall forecasts showing a major weather pattern shift across the United States and Canada, with the NCEP CFS V2 model showing a very strong El Niño developing and exceeding the Super El Niño threshold, having an immediate impact on summer, fall, and winter patterns. And here is what that means in direct, plain language for July and beyond. A Super El Niño event usually leads to more extreme weather shifts, amplifying normal seasonal changes into high-impact weather events, often resulting in massive flooding, severe droughts, severe storms, and significantly altered pressure system tracks that can affect the entire planet. Amplifying normal seasonal changes into high-impact weather events. Everybody, do you understand what that means for a July that is already producing record heat, record straight-line wind gusts, catastrophic drought, and an historically active severe weather season? It means everything we are seeing gets amplified. The heat gets more extreme. The drought gets deeper. The severe weather pattern gets more persistent. The flooding events get more intense. The Super El Niño is not creating these threats from scratch. It is turning up the volume on threats that were already there. The latest forecasts show a stronger El Niño with each new forecast run as models adjust to the latest atmospheric development, with the current 2026 development rivaling the strongest events of the past. And as this El Niño strengthens through July into August and September, as it approaches its peak this coming fall and winter, its fingerprints on our weather pattern are only going to become more visible, more intense, and more impactful. Let me also bring something global into this picture, because what is happening in the United States right now is not isolated. This is a worldwide weather story. Across the Atlantic, Europe has been going through one of its most prolonged and violent heat wave sequences in recorded history. From late May 2026 onwards, Europe was struck by severe heat waves, with temperature records being broken in Belgium, France, Germany, Hungary, Romania, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Poland, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Spain, and the United Kingdom, with temperatures 10 to 15 degrees Celsius higher than normal, and climate change causing the earlier onset of Central European summer. The same atmospheric ridge pattern that is cooking the eastern United States right now has been anchoring across the North Atlantic and pushing similar heat deep into Europe. This is not a coincidence, everybody. This is the same global pattern, the same atmospheric blocking, the same Super El Niño signal, just expressing itself on different continents at the same time. We are all living through the same weather story right now. The whole planet is in it together. So let me bring every piece of this together for you right now, because I know that was a lot. Let me give you the complete July forecast summary. The heat dome, locked in right now across the eastern two-thirds of the country. Over 250 million people affected. Heat indices reaching 115 degrees, more than 100 record highs expected through Saturday. 250 record warm overnight lows. Extreme heat warnings from Chicago to Detroit to Nashville to the entire Northeast Interstate 95 corridor. This is the most dangerous heat event of 2026 so far, and it is happening right now. The Ring of Fire, severe weather, already producing record-breaking wind gusts, multiple simultaneous severe weather zones stretching from the Dakotas to New England, and a pattern that is going to keep reloading and recharging day after day as long as this dome stays in place. Derecho potential is real. Strong tornado risk along the northern fringe is real. The threat is not going away after one day, everybody. This is a week-long, potentially month-long storm machine running along the edge of that dome. The wildfire threat, exceptional drought covering 61% of the nation, above normal fire risk across the West, the Rockies, the Great Plains, and Texas through the entirety of July. AccuWeather forecasting up to 8 million acres burned nationally this year. The 4th of July fireworks risk on top of this drought is real, and it is serious. The flash flooding threat elevated all month across Texas, the Ohio Valley, the Mississippi Valley, and the Southwest when the monsoon arrives, compounded by drought-hardened ground, storm-saturated soils in some regions, and the memory of what July 4th flooding did to the Texas Hill Country just 1 year ago, and the Super El Nino, now actively breaking into the atmosphere, amplifying every single one of these hazards, and expected to keep strengthening all the way through fall and into winter, potentially becoming one of the strongest events in recorded history. This is July 2026, everybody. Nobody is ready for it, but now you are. Stay hydrated. Stay weather aware. Have your severe weather plan ready every single day this month. Know your wildfire evacuation route if you are in the west. And keep one eye on that heat dome breakdown, because when it comes, it is going to come with a fury. I will be here tracking all of it every step of the way. That is my promise. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for your continued support. It means absolutely everything. Everybody, no matter what July throws at us, no matter how fierce the heat, how violent the storms, how relentless the fires, He is our refuge. He is our strength. All glory always goes to God, our Father in heaven, Yahweh. I pray He keeps every single one of you safe through this July and every day of your lives. Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Stay safe, everybody. Stay prepared. And I will see you in the next update.